Let's bring in our political panel. Kevin Sheridan is in Washington. He's a Republican strategist and was communications director for Paul Ryan during his 2012 vice presidential bid. Zerlina Maxwell is a Democratic strategist and was director of progressive media for the Clinton campaign. She's here with me in New York. Welcome to you both. A lot to get to.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Kevin. President Trump has not weighed in decisively on Mike Flynn's future yet. But how would you advise the president, Kevin, on Michael Flynn at this time?
Well, I think he's taken it slowly, and I think that's a good sign. We don't usually see a lot of confusion from him on which direction he wants to go on a subject. He's usually pretty direct. But I think he's waiting to see what information comes into him and exactly how this plays out. And, you know, the underlying offense of General Flynn to maybe have talked to a diplomat from Russia about the sanctions and in violation supposedly of the Logan Act is probably the least problematic, since that's never been prosecuted before. Other administrations have done it regularly, and that has not been a major issue. The bigger problem, of course, is that he could have lied to the vice president about it, put the vice president in a bad situation. Now, this claim, though, from the Washington Post today that they're getting reports from Democrat members of the intelligence community on their way out, one who was fired, saying that he could have been blackmailed. I think that's a bit of a dubious claim. I don't know why they wouldn't have just told the White House, his bosses, up front that this had happened and that they had information on this, then removing the possibility of him being blackmailed for it. So if that's we need to unpack that a little. It seems a little like politics being played from intelligence officers, and that's actually a problem that needs to be addressed as well.
Zerlina, what do you think?
I think that this is a really big problem, but it's for a little bit of a different reason. This is a story that actually started with the hacking of private emails in my former boss, John Podesta, the chairman of the Hillary Clinton campaign. And so the reason why this is coming up now, the reason why we're talking about conversations that possibly General Flynn had before the election, is because this is all happening at the same time. There are allegations, serious ones, that there was intrusion into our election process, our free and fair election process, by a foreign government, in this case, Russia. And so if you're having campaign operatives of now President Trump speaking with Russia, what were the extent of those conversations? Did they talk about the hacking into the private email servers? What did the Trump campaign know, and when did they know it? I think that these are serious questions that need to be unpacked by an independent and bipartisan commission, and that is not something that we're talking about. We're talking mostly about Flynn, but it's actually a little bit of a bigger story, I think.
Yeah, Kevin, I want to go back to what you said, though. Ultimately, Michael Flynn put the vice president in the position of going on TV and saying things that were just not true. Shouldn't that automatically be grounds for removal?
Well, it depends on exactly what the information, exactly what he said to the Russian diplomat and exactly what he said to Vice President Pence. And I think we don't know. We haven't heard from the vice president yet, and I think that's why Donald Trump is taking his time with this decision. Donald Trump is the only person that's going to make this decision. Vice President, if you believe reports, the vice president is not happy with the way this went down, and that will certainly affect President Trump's decision. I think if Donald Trump is going to do this, he should do it decisively. He should make it clear to the American public why he's doing it. And I think they should just move forward. And he's got a good national security team in place already. He needs to staff out that NSC, though. He needs to fill it out completely. But he's got General Mattis and General Kelly and Rex Tillerson at the State Department and Pompeo at CIA. He's got very talented, very capable people. He just needs to make a decision on this, and I think we'll hear about that in the next couple of days.
So, Zerlina, at the same time, you have Democrats on Capitol Hill weighing in and calling for Flynn's removal. But, this is not a cabinet position for which there was Senate confirmation required here. Why should Democrats have any say on Flynn's future?
I think that it's important for Democrats to speak up and be the voice of their constituencies. And so when there is information like this, where you have somebody with such an important job within the government, the National Security Advisor, perhaps lying to the vice president, that's something that I want to know more about. I want to get to the bottom of that. I don't want to just take somebody's word for it. And particularly when we're talking about an administration that has its own issues broadly with the truth. So this is not an isolated incident. But I also want to reflect back to the previous administration with President Obama. Remember when Susan Rice went out and made statements about Benghazi that ended up later being corrected by new information. And we had, hearing after hearing after hearing. We're still talking about Benghazi, all the way through the campaign. That was a buzzword. And so I think that when you have Sean Spicer, Reince Priebus, and you have the vice president going out on television making statements that later turn out not to be true, and this in specifics regarding the conversations between General Flynn and the Russian ambassador, that's something that's really serious, and we need to unpack that. That's not partisan. I think it goes to the veracity of people who are representing us and going out and making statements in public.
So, Zerlina, do you think there should be hearings?
I think there should be hearings, absolutely.
And
bipartisan and independent, not just about this specific thing, but also about the Russian hacking, because that's not a story that we should sweep under the rug. That's something that's really, it goes to the heart of our democracy. And if we can't trust in our democracy, then what do we have to believe in?
Kevin, you want to weigh in?
Well, yeah, and I think, look, if we're going to investigate, everything, I think we really need to investigate what the intelligence agencies are doing, tapping a U.S. citizen in General Flynn before he got into office, and a Russian diplomat using signals intelligence, highly classified signals intelligence, and then leaking it to the Washington Post and the New York Times and everyone else for political purposes. I think that needs to be investigated, because that's a real violation, and we should not just tolerate that. That's not something that the American people should stand for, and they should get to the bottom of it. And on the way out, Brennan and Yates, who was fired from Attorney General, and others should have to account for that. Where's that coming from, and why is that coming out now?
All right, we'll continue to watch it. Kevin Sheridan in Washington and Zerlina Maxwell here in New York. My thanks to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.